Quality. Quality is something that is infinite. Quality is something that has an unlimited resource. When we even talk about Midos, right? Or even with measurement, right? When we talk about the component of quality, there's a sense of infinity in that space. It's not my words. When we talk about quantity, quantifying is limited. So how much of something we want or need or desire, there's a limitation on the sense of quality of quantity, right? So again, just to repeat, quality is infinite. Quantity is limited. And how we can see this is understanding even in our own environment, in our own space, right? We can only eat as much as our stomach can contain. We can only breathe as much as there's space within, right? If we have a house, we can only bring in a certain amount of stuff, furniture, accessories. But when it comes to building the quality, so the quality of your environment, you can constantly improve. And that is something that is infinite. And as women, we in the Jewish world, we understand that men are tied to the mitzvahs aseh shazman grama, right? So anything limited to time is referring to men. But women, we step into the space where there's this unlimited, right? We step out of time and into space. And for a lot of us, we do a lot better in this infinite capacity, in this space where we're creating space. So a while back, I haven't mentioned this in a while, so we'll bring it back to this. When we talk about what a woman is, the concept of what a woman is the Akeres Habayis, right? She's the Ikar. So she's the caretaker of the house, and she is the essence of the house. But the shoresh, the root word of Akeres, comes from also the word Akara, right? So a woman that doesn't have a womb or cannot have children is called an Akara. The translation of that being that she cannot have kids because there is an empty space there. When we bring that back to the concept of a woman, of what a woman, the essence of what we are doing is we are creating space for others to dwell in. And that starts with ourselves. So the Ikar, the Akeres Habayis is when we understand that at the fundamental level, if we are trying to build a successful environment for others to feel welcome, there needs to be space for them in the home. So we can create the container, and then there can be that flexibility of them figuring out what to do with that space. If there's a lot of clutter, it is difficult to live in an environment. So when we talk about interior design, people get very stressed because for a lot of people, when we think about the concept of interior design, we're thinking fancy, we're thinking expensive, we're thinking things that are out of our budget. But again, back to the fundamental rules of interior design, something that is well built, right? Or like it has a good design component, 1 second. Nice. I think there's somebody that might not be muted. For some reason, I can't mute on my end. So just if you can just check, because oh yeah, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so something that's well designed will not need much explanation. The second we begin to explain ourselves, and this works from just a personal level as well. If we are spending a lot of time explaining ourselves, there possibly is a flaw in the design. And that doesn't mean there are any errors in the sense of error, but we need to recalibrate ourselves that the message that's coming across is almost self-explanatory. So if let's say when we build a room, right? So let's say a living room, for example, or a bedroom, when we build that space, the goal if the design was done properly, then the people that show up in that space will know what to do. You won't have to tell them. You won't have to walk around and say, this is this, that is that. This is where you sleep, this is where you sit, this is where the backpacks go. It will be self-explanatory in the sense that they walk in and something about the way it is designed, people will get it. It's a similar concept to the sense of Yer Shamayim. I always say the concept of Yer Shamayim, the beauty of Yer Shamayim is that when you walk into a Adam Gadol, right? When you walk into a tzaddik's presence, or anyone that you highly, highly respect, there aren't a set of rules listed of how you need to behave in front of that person. The quality that this person gives off in the sense of being who that person is will automatically bring the best out of you, and you will know what to do. It's a really powerful thing. But that is something that is gained from quality, not quantity. We live in a world where we celebrate, finances and abundance in the sense of quantity, how much of something is. I was talking to my kids, and we were just, current events, and people can lose a lot of money very quickly. That could take them many, many years to accomplish just by saying a few things, or different actions. When it comes to finances, it's all from Hashem. It's all siyata d'shmaya. And I said, go back 50 years, 50, even 70 years, right? If somebody had a store, right? Let's say a hardware store. You can have your hardware store. You can open the hardware store in the morning, and it was possible that nobody would show up that day. And if a guy's sitting behind the desk there, he can have a sefer and he can learn, and he can do his best just to sit and wait for somebody to show up. If we think about, and daven for the siyata d'shmaya that the customers should show up. And he'd be grateful. He'd be grateful for whatever showed up, but that was him doing the best he can. When we think about the best we can do, for a lot of us, it's a marathon. It's putting on sneakers in the morning and running and coming back panting and being exhausted and thrashed. Our nervous system being shot, and we're just chasing a tail. We're busy with the quantity. And then we buy a lot of stuff and we lose a lot of stuff. And then there's this sense of emptiness and chaos and confusion, which is very overwhelming. My son came home with a very amazing story. We were in the same conversation that we were having. I didn't get the source from him. He shared it, but I didn't get a chance to write it down. But there's a story. I don't know if it's a medrash. I'm not sure, but I will try to get you the source of an eyeball. Somebody had an eyeball, and they put this eyeball on a scale. And on the other side of the scale, they wanted to see how much this eyeball weighs. So they start putting stuff on the other side. Pounds of gold, the eyeball still weighing very, very heavy. 2 pounds, 5 pounds. They put silver on, they keep on piling things up on the side of the metals. And the eyeball, which is so small, is still weighing itself down. So he goes back to the person that gave him the eyeball and he said, "What weighs more than this eyeball?" He said, "Go to the eyeball and close its lid." He closed the lid, and all of a sudden the eyeball starts to lift up on the scale and the metals come down. And the point of that is just take a moment to notice what that feels like within. So much of what drives us on a daily basis, so much of the chaos that is created on a daily basis and motivated is by what we see, what we're seeing with our eyes, what our imagination begins to build. And we're able to take a few moments to close that lid, close the eyes, create this shelter for ourselves, this sense of sneas, right? Of creating this modest approach where instead of being so ambitious and trying to guarantee a future, understanding that we live in Hashem's world. This world was created, and it's about us discovering on a daily basis. One of the only through lines that takes us from one day to the other, because again, we pay rent, we argue with people, we eat, we have trouble with our digestion, we want to lose weight, we gain weight, we have friends, we don't have friends, fashion, seasons. When we look at what matters, so much of what matters is the quality, how we build on the quality. So really knowing that when we understand, and this is from a Jewish practice perspective, we get up every day and we're here to serve today. It's in the Avodas Hashem from today. My daughter shared also something really, really beautiful. And we were talking about Parshas Noach, and she was saying, why was the Dora Mabul destroyed? And when it came to the Dora Flaga, they weren't, right? So what was the difference there? And stealing is a very, very big thing. And she said and this is a beautiful point, that they're stealing in everything we do. Because if we're not working on the quality of something, what we're doing is we're stealing from Kavod Hashem. So by not taking that time to build on the quality, because quality is something that we can control, right? As in, we can't control the people around us, but we can control how we begin to refine ourselves in this space. So to me, that was something that was really impactful. So we're going to enter just a meditative space right now with 2 lines from some of the teachings that I'm building on today. But as in, if we're entering something from a quiet space, I want you to take the time as we're like working through this. So he says here, the last man on earth sat alone in a room. Now visualize that. Visualize the sense of isolation, simplicity, a sense of calm that might be available to you if you were the last man on earth. And then there was a knock at the door. The point being that when we communicate quality and quantity, the moment there's that knock on the door, we're up, we're running, we're distracting ourselves, we're trying to find any way to fill that time. That discipline takes a lot, to be able to take the time to hold ourselves accountable to our own truth by refining that quality. But when we know that quality, the sense of quality is infinite, the simplicity of who we become when we're aligned within ourselves, that silence that is available to us, and the peace of mind that is available to us when we are in that space where the eyelid is closed and we're the last man on earth. So as you move through your day today, take the time to notice you don't have to be a master interior designer, but just take some time to move through your experience and notice how much of what you've designed is self-explanatory and transparent in the sense to yourself. Where can we align more with quality than invest our time into the quantity? And with that, I will leave you, but we can open it up for talking. So happy Monday, everybody. So yeah, let's see what we can discover here today. All right. So yeah, we have about 10 minutes. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share or any questions, this is your time. Good morning.
Good morning. What happens if it's a day you feel like you can't design anything?
That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing then. If you're in a position where you're not when you can't design, just notice if that is a day that you are taking to digest, to relax into yourself, to find that quiet, that in itself is a design. Because the days that we take, right, on a day that we're not feeling, let's say, the best, or I always feel like Monday's my Sunday, because when the kids go to school, I feel like once Monday comes around, I always needed some time for myself. What we're doing is we're integrating this sense of quiet, right? The quality of this peace of mind. And that's something that if we take the time to build it right, it will follow through into the next day. But if on a day that we're not feeling our best, we take the time to create judgment, right? To confine ourselves to the struggle of, oh, I'm frustrated that I'm not feeling my best today. You just carry fatigue into tomorrow. So as we build, as we build comfort in that space, that is what's going to follow you to tomorrow and escort you into that day. Rather than, and knowing, I always say, remember that this is where Hashem wants you to be today. So when we fault ourselves for feeling a certain way, right? We're like, why am I feeling like this? I should be doing this and I should be doing that and I shouldn't feel like that. It comes from more of a quantitative, right? We're coming from a place where it's more of a, like, we're trying to quantify, when it's like, just stop, like, build on the quality. So if today feels a certain way, especially for women, we go through cycles, and in that cycle there are a lot of challenging days. And if we face that day and be like, this is exactly where Hashem wants me to be, and then we say, I accept it, and I'm going to create a sense of comfort in the space that I'm in, that quality is there for you.
Thank you.
Enjoy. My pleasure. I love that question. Thank you, Goldie.
Okay. Because we just sort of pound ourselves and pound the people around us, and then we have to clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I do impulsive things that are just not in my best interest.
And then because we're trying to
impulsive shopping or impulsive conversations or just, it's not coming from a settled, calm place.
Our brain is wired to quantify. It's like we're trying to quantify, we're trying to accumulate more rather than build on the quality. So when we're attracted to wanting something, rather than us running towards the physical stuff, if we start running, we start just leaning more towards, well, let me just create a quality experience for myself. Western society is built off of the concept of consumer, being a consumer. They want you to build, because the more you're buying, the less control you have over the quality. The less you have, the only thing you'll have is control over the quality. Think about when I was kids, or when you were a kid. If you were given a car, you had to know how to fix it, because you were going to get stuck. It was a guarantee that car would get stuck. We'd have to pop the hood in any neighborhood, and pop our heads under that hood and deal with whatever broke down. Nowadays, if a kid, kids don't have to think about that. You had to take care of it. Even if it was a piece of garbage, we knew how to work with it. We knew we had accountability for every part of it, which is not something that nowadays is accessible to everyone, And so that works with our own bodies and our own emotions. There's just so much dimension that we're not even sure how, just like what to do and how to do it. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Always. My pleasure. My pleasure. Yeah.
Nowadays, just throw it out and get a new one.
Right. Right. But then in the long run, it's practicing a sense of quantity rather than quality. We've detached ourselves from the level of quality, and that's why, and then it just wastes a lot of time as well, because we're not listening to our intuition in the sense of, even in relationships, like this could be business relationships, even with our kids. It's like, for a lot of us, we think we can buy our way out of things, myself included. But it's, when we talk about quality, that's something money can't buy. And if we start listening to ourselves and building on that quality rather than leaning into the quantity, a lot of times we'll find deeper connections, and the red flags will come in earlier. We'll be able, when we see somebody
What do you mean
misbehave.
by quantity?
So the quantity is the amount, right? So it's like we lean towards, let's say, people that are popular, or people that have a lot of money, or even for ourselves, our value. We think we have value if we have a lot of stuff, right? Or if we want our kids to like us, we'll buy them things rather than spend time with them, right? So we're kind of, we're with society in general, it's becoming a discussion, right? But if we are looking for quality, we can find it in people's behavior. How are they showing up? How are they showing up for us? How are we showing up for them? How do they respond when we communicate with them?
I love that.
And
Thank you.
and if we focus on that, that is something that's infinite, because a quality person will keep showing up a certain way, and for ourselves, that quality will you know it'll transfer to the next day, and it'll transport itself. So for example, if you take the time, even though, if today's a little gloomy, and you take the time to just be really gentle with yourself, that gentleness will be there tomorrow. But if we take that time to kind of sprint off, run off, run out and look for something to give us that little bit of adrenaline, um, tomorrow will come and we'll also have a difficult time getting out of bed.
I got out of bed. I just went
Very
back.
exciting. and that's really, really wonderful that you have that opportunity. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. Yeah. All right, we're gonna leave it here.